The Against All Odds podcast, sponsored by Oak Forest Recovery.
Welcome to the Against... Oh, I just cracked my neck. Did you hear that? Welcome to the Against All Odds podcast. I am host Rachel. We have Hunter, and we have my boy Shawn Livingston in the house. Why don't you introduce yourself, Shawn? Let me just say real quick, he is a master of social media and content creation at the moment. Yeah. Had a whole documentary made about him and does so many more things. So let us in a little bit into who you are and what you do.
Oof, who I am, what I do. Yeah. Shawn Livingston, 7 years sober, heroin addict, veteran, and just, man, what I do is use my experience to help other people however I can, whether that's speaking, whether that's fitness, whether that's podcasting, you name it. I didn't know a world existed where we could take all the pain and all the bullshit we have been through and never use that to help people, and so once I discovered that, changed my life.
On and popping, right?
Yes, sir.
Shawn and I met at a funeral.
We did.
And now we're buds.
Yep, now we're boys.
Yeah, and he had one of the first podcasts that I had ever been on in person, and now you're here.
Yeah, you could not have given me a better start, so thank you. Thank you. Do you know how many people reach out to me asking me if I can get you on their podcast?
Really?
Yeah, a lot.
Well, tell them you should always...
$1,000 a piece.
That's what. I was like, yo, she's super nice and like one of the most approachable people ever.
I would love
like, hit her
to. I
up.
would love to.
Don't say that. Your inbox is about to be crazy.
That's okay. If I can do it, I will. You know, that's how I always look at it.
When she was originally coming on the podcast, hopefully I'm not messing up the format of y'all.
No. We free format it.
So when she was originally coming on, like people had told me, they're like, oh yeah, she's big on TikTok and all that. Bro, I've never been on TikTok. Like I get social media, but I didn't quite get it.
Yeah. Right.
So I knew she had followers. I didn't know she had like fans. Like she's an army of people.
She's famous
or whatever. And then she came on, boy, and we posted that first thing, and my phone started going and going and going, and it didn't stop. And I'm like, what is wrong with my phone? I'm like,
it was a good clip.
Yeah,
it was a good clip.
It was just
about
good.
how I tried to get off heroin with crack.
Yeah.
You know,
that
one always goes a bit.
It does. Yeah. It was a good one. So I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Where do you want to start? You want to give us, some background into your life? You want to get into some real deep childhood trauma? Where do you want to start?
Wherever. I'm open book. We can start wherever. But
okay.
Where do you want me to start? You tell me.
Where'd you grow up at, and what did that look like?
Grew up in Youngstown, Ohio. It's a very, very blue-collar area of the country, It was all steel workers back in the day, and then once the steel industry kind of went down in our area, our entire area went down. So we have Youngstown State University. That's basically the only thing that leaves our city still standing. Not a tremendous amount of opportunity, not a tremendous amount of anything going on there. And so I quickly realized that I didn't have much of a future there. And, I was a partier earlier on, so I could see it starting to get a hold of me. So 9/11 happened. I was off to the Air Force, did 6 years in the Air Force. And then, unfortunately, I just didn't have enough life experience to understand how good I had it. And so I thought I was homesick. I thought I was missing all these big bad things everybody was doing back home. Come back home to realize nobody's not doing shit. Everybody's on oxys now, and so here I am. And so pretty quickly I got involved in the oxys and that whole life. And so I knew I needed to do something, so that's what led me getting back into the military. And then went into the Army. That's what got me stationed in Texas, and here we are.
And here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's rewind a little bit. Do you remember the first time you ever got high or drunk?
Ooh, the first time I ever got high or drunk, yeah.
Let's go through the first experience with substances that you've ever had, that you remember.
First time I ever drank, I drank 6 Milwaukee's Best Ice that somebody had left in the cab of a truck as a joke at my dad's house. And they were just sitting in the bottom of my dad's fridge, and I was probably 14. And was like, these seem like a good idea. And I drank 6 of those and was rocked. Done. That was my first experience drinking. And then I didn't drink for a long time because, number one, beer at first didn't taste good, and you start with Milwaukee's Best Ice. So,
right. But did you like the feeling that you experienced that time, or was it kind of just like you could take it or leave it at that point?
Probably take it or leave it at that point. It didn't have me then.
Yeah.
And it was beer.
Yeah. Wasn't your
Drinking
thing.
was never just really my thing. And then, I mean, smoking weed as a kid. I'm trying to think of my first time smoking weed. all I know is every drug or everything I did, and I don't know how you guys feel, but everything I did, you know, you grow up being told it's going to kill you, it's going to do this and do that, and everything I did, I'd be like, that's it?
Yeah.
That was this? And then what's next? What's next?
Yeah.
next?
It's
And
like the classic DARE, you know, how we learned in DARE class. They're like, you do this and you die. You know, like you're going to end up this, and this. And then, you, like you said, you do it and you're like, that didn't happen how you said it was going to happen.
Right.
Let's do the next thing.
Yeah. And I don't know, like weed never got me where I wanted to be. You know what I mean? Like I want to be fucked up.
Yeah.
But all I know is there was nothing in my brain that was ever like, nothing ever registered with me when it came to drugs. When I started using needles, there was nothing in me that said this is wrong, I shouldn't do this, this is bad. It was like as completely normal as it is for a regular person to wake up and brush their teeth. It's how normal it was for me to wake up and shoot up.
What was it like the first time you used Oxy?
The first couple times I didn't feel shit. I did a line of it and was like, I don't know if I just wasn't looking for the right thing. It didn't really do anything. And then one time in particular, I did a 40, and it was like the world came alive in all color. And it was like, you mean I can snort stuff and actually go to sleep, and I can eat, and my nose isn't bleeding, and this, that, and the other thing. And so, yeah, I was in on that.
And how did that progress to you using heroin?
I mean, I think like most, it starts as like a weekend, once in a while weekend thing, and then once in a while weekend thing becomes every weekend, and then maybe we'll hit it on a Wednesday because we're bored, and then before you know it, it's every day. And then I remember the first time I went without. I thought I had food poisoning for a couple of days, and then they were like, "Oh no, this is dope sick," and I was like, "What?" And so.
And then you're like, oh, I could fix it if I just
So you mean I just got to snort another one of these,
Say
and this
less.
goes away every day? Awesome. I'm in. Let's do it.
Okay, so your addiction progresses, and then you go back into the Army, right? When
Yeah.
things
Left the Air
start
Force,
getting-
go into the Army.
Right.
Yes.
And then what was that like for you?
So I get stationed in Texas, and funny story of how I got into the Army. So within the 2 years of me getting out of the Air Force and getting into the Army, I started bouncing around state to state because I figured I'd run from my problems, and but little did I know everywhere I went, the problem was still there. So I ended up in Miami, Florida. When it was all said and done, I discovered heroin down there, shoot heroin for about a year straight, burn everything down. I got no other options left. And so it's the first time and only time I called my family and asked for help. And so I'd have to call. I end up finding a detox in Tampa in the phone book. And so I'm going to go there, and then we're going to figure out what we're going to do from there. And so my mom's aware. She's getting my grandma involved. They're going to pay for me to go to treatment. And so I get shipped down from Miami to Tampa. I go into detox, and I thought like they were going to give me some like new earth-shattering shit that was just going to make dope sick go away. Well, they gave me Suboxone. And I was getting Suboxone for free from my neighbor, so I was pissed. I'm like, you mean I'm paying $1,000 a day for this when I could have been at home for free? And so we go in there and do that, and I talked to my mother on the phone, and she's like, all right, go ahead and do your research. Wherever you want to go, your grandmother and I are going to pull money together, and we're going to send you. And so I'm like, all right, cool. I'm kicking dope. I'm not doing any research. And so we get off the phone, and all I know is everybody in this treatment center is talking about going to a place in Louisiana. So I'm like, awesome, I'll go there. And so they send me down to Louisiana, and I show up to this beautiful treatment center that's this big plantation home on all this land. And I go in there, and the first couple days, every time I walk into a different room, I notice there's this picture of this guy on the wall. And I'm like, who is this dude? I know what the president looks like. I know what Jesus looks like. That's not either of them. Who is this guy? So by day 3, I can't take it anymore, and I lean over to one of the clients. I'm like, hey, man, who's the dude on the wall?
Bill Wilson.
And no. He's like, hey, man. He's like, that's L. Ron Hubbard. And I was like, who? And he's like, L. Ron Hubbard. And I was like, who the fuck is L. Ron Hubbard? He's like, oh, that's the founder of Scientology. And I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
And so then he takes me upstairs, and back then portable DVD players were still a thing, and he just happened to have the South Park box set, and he busts out the one disc where it shows me what Scientology is through South Park. And so I watched that, and I'm like, where am I? Like, what are we doing? And so for 4.5 months, I did Scientology rehab.
Yeah.
What was that? What did they go into that was
Did you do the
specific to
saunas and stuff?
Scientology?
Everything.
Yeah.
Touch that wall.
Okay, yeah. Open that up, because I feel like I don't know what that entails at all.
So it's, I mean, where do you want to begin?
I want to hear all of it.
So
I'm actually really curious.
So I'll tell you, the one thing that had me was they gave me the best explanation of why we relapsed that I had ever heard. And so once they said that, I was like, oh, I'm in. And so they said that basically we do all these foreign substances and they get stored in your fatty tissue. And so now, have you ever wondered why you'll just be like randomly cleaning the house one day and all of a sudden you're like, man, I could really go for some ecstasy, or I really want to do a line. And then when they said that, I'm like, that happens to me all the time. Yeah. And so they're like, well, it's getting stored in your fatty tissues and you're constantly breaking down calories in your body. And so when you burn that, it gets released into your bloodstream and it goes and hits your brain and it hits the pleasure center, but it's not enough to get you high, but it's enough to make you want the drug. And I was like, oh, you guys know your shit. I'm in on this. Let's go. But they had us we worked our way up to doing 8 hours in the sauna a day. They had us doing
8 hours straight?
Straight. I mean,
so that was like
you would get out and get a bottled water, but they'd be like, all right, get back in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they're saying that you're sweating out all these toxins, and I'm not gonna lie, like you do go through some hallucination.
I know people that
things.
have had like some like really good experiences in Scientology. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you think what that makes me think of is I did a sweat lodge once, and that shit was intense. Like I had an emotional, spiritual experience in there.
Right.
So I wonder how much validity there is. To
it's
stuff
not
like
actually a religion, though, is it?
No.
It's not really a religion.
No, it's
because you
definitely
can be Christian and still practice like Scientology stuff.
Oh, I always thought it was a
Really?
religion.
Yeah. There's a Scientology rehab close to us, and they had us come tour it. They had Justin come tour it, and Justin's like looks like the perfect Scientologist.
Kid. Yeah.
So the guy was like, listen, all Scientology is he's like, it's like a program like the 12 Steps, except for normal people. And he was like, I'm actually Catholic, but I practice Scientology.
So they do have their own steps.
okay.
There's like 30 steps. What I will say is, if you followed those 30 steps, you would have a good life if you could follow them. I did not
That's
apply
so
any
interesting to me.
But you and I can
You
also
didn't follow. Yeah,
you and I can also sit
If
down.
you did.
We can also sit down right now, and I can tell you, hey, don't kill people, don't steal, respect other people's religion, and like that's what it
Right.
is. So it's on you to do what you want with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had us do stuff where we'd have to sit for multiple hours straight, face knee to knee like this, and you can't move, you
Open
can't
eye
blink.
meditation.
Yeah, for straight. But if you get to, let's say we're doing 2 hours, and you get to an hour 45, and you scratch,
Yes,
and you
sir.
laugh, because it's real hard at first, people giggle and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you mess up, start over. The most wild one is the wall touching stuff, and there's a bunch of different variations. But
Wall touching?
yeah, so basically what they do is they have a book. It's basically an answer book. They have the answers.
Yeah.
And so what they do is basically I'd be like, look at that wall. And then you look at the wall. Walk over to that wall. And you walk to the wall. Touch that wall. And you touch that wall. Remove your finger from that wall. Turn around. Look at that wall. Walk over to that wall. And you just do this for hours. And
Is
for
it almost
hours.
like a form of brainwashing, you think? Or like brain
Remapping or something?
Yeah.
I don't know. They're saying there's something to that where basically then you're supposed to come up with these like realizations,
Okay.
right? So we do this for 6 hours, and then you turn around. Once you do it after a while, then you start acting, and so you're like, oh, I don't have to do heroin anymore. It's a choice. Like you come up with these answers, and they'll be like, that's good. Let's keep going. And once you get told about that, or about the 30th time, you're like, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, so then you're coming up with whatever you can, you know what I mean? And then you might give the right answer, but you didn't give good VGIs.
What is that?
Very good indicators.
Oh.
When you say this, you have to have very good indicators. You need to be smiling. Your eyes need to be clear. Like, you can't just be like, I don't need to. It has to be like this over-the-top thing, but natural. And, yeah, so it's things like that. They brought out like fake heroin and in a spoon and all that stuff, and they'll be like, touch that heroin, remove your finger from that heroin, touch that heroin, remove your finger from that heroin, for hours.
So did you
days.
were there parts of this treatment that you enjoyed, or was it all? Because I feel like I'm just like trying to think of myself in there. I would have been flipping shit. I would have been gone. I don't think I would have survived.
I mean, I was young, and you know what I mean. You can have we were out there.
You were
playing.
also in the military, so I feel like maybe you had for like following structure. You were kind of not used to that.
I was still a drug addict.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as that stuff goes, it was funny when I landed in prison. I was very comfortable in prison. I never had that, like, I just realized, like, the military and everything has prepared me for this my entire life. Like, I'm living in close quarters with a bunch of dudes from all different walks of life who smell, burp, fart, like, all that stuff. They tell us when to go to bed. They tell us when we're allowed to work out. It's just like being in the military.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was nothing, as far as Scientology goes, there's not really much that can get you ready for that. It's really, I love telling the story.
Yeah,
You know
I mean,
what
it's
Was the
very
food good in there?
interesting.
I think the food was incredible.
Yeah.
They are very big on eating healthy.
Taking care of your body,
And then, like,
right?
yeah, when you get out of the sauna, they'd give you basically, like, I don't know if it was olive oil in a little cup, and then, like, salt, potassium. So they'll
Electrolytes.
Try to load you back up with that stuff.
Okay, so from the Scientology treatment center,
Yep.
how long did you stay sober
They
for?
try.
They-
I smoked crack and snorted oxy my first night out. Thank you.
Hell yeah.
A real one. What?
Hell yeah.
4.5 months of Scientology rehab ain't gonna hold me down. No, I fucked up the first night out.
Yeah.
I went back to. I remember calling home when I graduated, and I was like, "Mom, they're offering me a job here," and she's like, "You got life fucked up. Get your ass. You're not staying there." But she didn't know anything about Scientology or any of
Yeah.
that, so she didn't know they were trying to like get you in there. But I went home and I knew I needed to do something quick, and so it was immediately to the Army. And so that got me down here stationed in Texas at Fort Hood, and we immediately started training, get ready to go to Iraq. So we were off and running as soon as I got here.
Right. And then, so you went to, can we walk through Iraq and what that?
Yeah. So I ended up getting injured. Where things all went real bad is I got injured training to go to Iraq. And so we were doing a drill called 3 to 5 second rushes. I feel bad because I'm like at an angle where I can't
it's all good.
do there, so I feel like I'm only talking to
It's
her.
all good. It's all good. I'm listening.
3 to 5 second rushes. So basically, you have on all your equipment, you have your weapon, your helmet, everything, and you run 3 to 5 seconds, drop, jump back up, run 3 to 5 seconds, drop. It's a creative way of getting them. You're doing burpees,
Yeah.
weighted burpees, basically.
Yeah.
And so I just come up one time, and I felt a little tweak in my back, didn't think anything of it, and then the next day, when I went to wake up, I like couldn't sit up out of bed, I couldn't roll, move, and all. So come to find out, I had herniated 2 discs that were pinching my sciatic nerve, so I was like fucked. And so, unfortunately, at that time in the military, the education on opiates isn't what it is today, and so they just started giving me big bottles of Percocets and hit me up with steroid injections. And you know, I'm a very competitive person, and so unfortunately, the culture in the military, if you're not ready to go, you're worthless to them.
Right.
And so I tell people all the time, there's a very real moment when you're in the military where you realize you're no longer you and you're government property. You're your Social Security number now. That's your number. And so when you train with all these people and these people become your brothers and sisters and all that, and then all of a sudden people are starting to look at you crazy like you're faking because you don't want to deploy or any of that, like that's just the culture in the military. So I was never going to let that happen. So of course I'm throwing down all the pills, not trying to get fucked up, but trying to like
Right.
go.
Perform. Right.
Yeah. And so I went. That ended up being the worst thing I could do for my back, but made it through the deployment. Thank God I didn't get myself or anybody else killed. And then I came back, and it was just, people talk about PTSD and like all the bad things that happen, you know, over there, but you really see the effects of it once you get back.
Yeah.
And so within a very short amount of time, I lost 3 very close people to me. Drug and alcohol were involved in all 3, and these were people that were not addicts. They weren't people like us.
They were just trying to cope with.
You never
what they
used any of that like
experienced.
Middle Eastern dope when you were over there?
No, we were getting stuff shipped
Yeah.
from, yeah.
They were just loading. you guys
Everybody's
up.
ready to send you stuff when you're fighting for your country
Oh
over in
yeah.
Iraq. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like that's just fast forward to now? Since then, do you feel like the military has come up a little bit with just throwing pills and medications at
I'm
people?
sure. I don't know. I'm sure they have.
Because I just know it's such a huge
Yeah.
problem in veterans. Like, you know.
I know when I was, so over in Iraq, it's called Camp Taji. Camp Taji is the largest military installation we have in Iraq. And so I got that whole base shut down on painkillers. So basically the entire military in Iraq could not get painkillers because I decided to go lie to a full-bird colonel and try to get more pills and do this whole big thing that didn't work out for me. And so they shut down the whole base. And so you can imagine every time I walk into the chow hall and they're like, "Oh, you're a Livingston? You're the reason why I can't get my pills?" So I was not popular in those days.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would have to imagine with everything the way it is today, especially
my
after these
my
documentaries.
dad's a vet, and I can tell you the VA. And my dad had 5 back surgeries, and even with the VA, they're like really limited on what they'll prescribe now. Like out of
that's
nowhere,
good.
they just kind of shut him
Yeah.
off from getting pain pills. You know.
Yeah.
So I think it has changed.
Yeah.
You know, a bit.
I think with everything, it's probably worldwide.
Especially
everywhere.
because also like the VA specifically doesn't like to cover addiction treatment. So it's like, how
They're
are we
not
going to
gonna
give
fund it,
people
right?
pills if we're not also willing to like
Very
help
true.
them? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
But I know trying to get off Suboxone with them was like trying to fight for my life. They were with the VA.
Yeah.
They were like, basically, they're like, you can't.
Yeah.
You're gonna
That you
relapse.
have
And
to-
I'm like,
yeah,
no,
you
you don't
have to stay
understand.
on
I work
this.
a program. I do all this. And they were like, no, you have to stay.
Was that
on it.
wait? So did you go on it right when you got back, or wait?
No, this is
okay.
years-
So
years
let's
later.
pick up. So you came home, dealing with the PTSD,
Yep.
addiction. Are you still getting the pills? You're still getting the pills at this
No,
point, or
so,
did you?
so once we came back from Iraq, so basically when you're over and when you're at war, you're getting hazardous duty pay the whole time.
Yeah.
And there's nowhere to spend your money.
Right.
So you're over in this extreme environment all the time, and then all of a sudden they bring you back to the States and just kind of plop you over, and then they give you a bunch of leave time. So you get to go home, see your family,
Yeah.
and you have all this money saved up. What do you think everybody's
And all
out
this
doing?
trauma to deal
Right.
with. Yeah.
And so within the first month of us getting back from Iraq, my not to bring it down too much, but the if I was to describe to you like what an American soldier was, and I was going to show you the definition of what an American soldier was, I'd show you my squad leader, Sergeant Franklin. He was everything I wanted to be in: a man, a leader, a soldier, you name it. I looked up to him greatly. And so I'm a big Steelers fan. He's a big Patriots fan. We came back. It just so happened they were playing, so we were talking shit back and forth the night of the game. Next morning comes, we go to formation. We have PT in the morning, and I show up to formation. Sergeant Franklin's not there. After PT, I found out that Sergeant Franklin had found out that his wife was being unfaithful while we were deployed, and he decided to open up a clip on his wife and then turn the gun on himself while both of his small children are in the house. Now, anybody listening to that says that person, horrible human being. I'm telling you, this is one of the best human beings I know. It's completely uncharacteristic of this
Right.
man.
Right.
I would give my life for that dude still to this day. It blows my mind. Turns out he was under the influence. My best friend, Corey Taylor, I got multiple tattoos with him. I did my entire Army experience with him. And he partied around me he watched me party so much on hard drugs. He was not a hard drug guy, but he basically became desensitized to it, I believe. And so he ended up getting stationed somewhere else once we got back, and he was partying with some people, didn't know that you can't mix Xanax and opiates, laid down for a nap, never woke up.
Oh no.
And then my other friend, Scotty, he went home on leave to Alabama to visit his mother. The paramedics found him passed out in his kitchen, and next to him, laying dead, was his mother, who had been killed from blunt force trauma to the head because he had
Oh,
mixed
my
Xanax and
God.
alcohol and accidentally
fuck.
killed his mom.
Yeah.
And so he's doing life in prison in Alabama right now. So like three very, very close people, that happens, and then I come back with this crippling opiate addiction, all this money, and so I'm just
Yeah.
immediately off
What
to the
What do you
races.
think would make a change for people that have been through what you've been through? Like, what could like the VA or TRICARE or any of those people, what could they do to make it different?
I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure what. Could there be stuff that they could do? Yeah, but you also, the one thing nobody ever factors in is you have to look at who the military takes.
Yeah.
Most of us that are joining the military don't have many other options. School wasn't for me, you know what I mean? And so it's like you're taking people that are coming from other walks of life that are, you know what I mean, like they could be more susceptible to these things.
Yeah.
Usually they probably party anyways. They're usually trying to get out of that party life.
Yeah.
But as far as that, I mean, probably what they're doing, not prescribing those type of medications and stuff like that, but then also having, it's tough, man, because your father, I'm sure, knows firsthand, like,
Yeah.
for me to go to the which I've done this, I've showed up to the mental health clinic struggling, depression.
Yeah.
You can clearly look at my stuff and see that I'm disabled, depression, PTSD, agoraphobia, sleep disorder, nightmare, like all these things. And I literally told them, like, ma'am, I'm struggling. I need to talk to somebody. She's like, okay, we'll have somebody call you. 2 weeks went by, nobody had ever called me. I showed back up in person. Ma'am, I'm still really struggling. I need to talk to somebody. Okay, we're going to have somebody call you, I promise. 3 weeks go by, still nothing. And so you wonder why people are fucking walking into
Right.
a VA blowing their brains out. Like, the VA is huge. I know there's a ton of veterans that they need to help, but luckily now I think they've started kind of outsourcing people if you don't get in. Hopefully that's the case, but I mean, I'm not really sure what they could do. It's such a big problem and such a big pool of people to try to fix it for.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like the issues are pretty heavy. You know, it's not usually just like an easy fix.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a lot of dedication and treatment needs to go into
And
these
also,
situations.
people that are in the military have kind of that mentality. You know what I mean? That it's like you don't really open up, you don't really talk
Right.
about it. You just kind of fucking push on. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Were you deployed in the Air Force as well?
I was stationed over in Germany, but never quote unquote deployed. No.
Yeah.
Okay, so from there, addiction's taking you down.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So at what point do things change
For the good.
for the good, or what consequences? Let's talk about what consequences you went through along the lines.
So as soon as I get out of the military, I immediately start getting in trouble with the law.
Right.
And that was always like the one thing I would hang my hat on to my family or whatever. Be like, well, I've never been arrested, never been locked up. I must not be doing that bad.
Yet.
Well, and I went on quite the run. And so, like, as soon as I went AWOL as they were kicking me out. And so I go AWOL, I remember I took a whole bottle of Klonopin and shot up, and then fucking had a really nice Yukon at the time with rims and everything. I fucking totaled that, hitting a parked car, and then caught back-to-back felonies for heroin possession. So got busted in Waco, bonded out that same day, went right to the dope man, got popped again. So that now I have 2 felonies, and so now it comes time I got to go away and do time. And so I go in, I turn down probation, and then I go in and I do 2 years.
Yeah, let's get it over with.
Yeah, I mean, I was dumb listening to everybody else. They're like, well, you're going to fuck it up, so you might as well go. And I'm like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Which they probably were. But so I'd say where things started to change was like my rock bottom moment. I can remember sitting in prison and my mom stopped picking up the phone. She stopped taking my collect calls. And that was like the one thing where it was like, damn, like when mom won't pick up the phone anymore, like I've really fucked it up.
Yeah.
Not saying I got sober at that point or everything was good from then on, but that was like kind of a wake up moment.
Yeah, it was a realization.
Yeah. And so I was on my own pretty much. I mean, I was on my own this whole time, but as far as like not even my family was going to talk to me until I got my shit straight.
Right.
And so I got out, still didn't get sober, but I mean, was of the mindset. And so kind of would go to treatment for a little bit or do this or do that, but was still messing around. And I ended up catching my 3rd and my 4th felonies for heroin possession. And I will tell you, like at that time in my life, I thought I was the tough guy.
And this is in Waco? Where was this?
We're in Austin right now.
Oh, in Austin, okay.
Did I get popped my last time? All my felonies have been in Waco, so that's where I
Okay.
got popped. But at this time, when I'm thinking about this and like looking at going and doing all this time, or was I living in Temple? All I know is I've lived all over the country. I ran around in all these bad neighborhoods, hung around these people, been in the military, and was like, I'm a bad motherfucker. And all I know is I stood in front of a judge that day, and he looked me dead in the face and said he didn't see any reason to sentence me to under 20 years and that they were going to charge me as habitual criminal. And the moment he looked me in the eyes and said that, all the tough guy shit went right out the window. And I was like, yo, fuck all this. This isn't worth it. Like, running around here wanting to be a bad motherfucker and thinking you're a gangster and all, like, I'm good. I don't want to do this anymore. And so I talked to my lawyer and was like, look, man, like, I know I'm going away. Can you at least give me some time where I could at least try to clean up, get on speaking terms with my family? Hopefully I don't get a kick in county, when I do go. And he's like, yeah, we could do that. I'll get you some continuances. So my only option at that point was a state-funded treatment center here in Austin. And so I decided to go to that. And it ended up being a 6-month inpatient thing. Was the absolute best thing I did was being willing to finally sit my ass down and be like, all right, this takes as long as it takes.
Yeah.
Because 6 months of the treatment as opposed to 20 years, I'll take every time.
Right.
I didn't know that it was going to be like that.
Yeah.
But I was like, 6 months, cool, let's do it. And then it's really what finally made me sit down and do all that. And then that treatment center was where things really started to change. That's kind of where I remember a day, 2 things happened. Arrested Development? Mm-hmm. Not the show.
Nope.
No, the term.
Nope.
Arrested Development?
What is it?
Arrested Development. Mm-mm. So, you guys don't know that?
I know the show.
So, Arrested Development is basically the idea that we've frozen our brain's development at whatever age we start using hard drugs or alcohol.
Oh, Oh, yeah, okay,
It's
yeah.
it's a medical thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I may be butchering it, but it's the way I
Yeah,
understand
I've never heard that terminology,
Right.
but I always know that like when you start using,
Yeah.
you stay that age, right?
Right.
Like that your maturity
Yeah.
level stays that age, your emotional level stays that age. Yeah. Okay. So go ahead.
So I can remember being in treatment, and I'd been in there maybe 2 months, and I remember looking in the mirror, and I had done some time in the VA before this, and so I had some sobriety time up under my belt. So I think about that time I was 6-8 months sober, and so I'm in this treatment center, and I remember taking a look in the mirror, and I had heard the term arrested development before. I always thought it was kind of bullshit. But all I know is I looked in that mirror and I looked at who I saw. And I know when I first started using hard drugs and alcohol, I was right around 17 years old. My hat was crooked. My pants were down around my ass, and I talked crazy. Here I am, 35 years old in a state-funded treatment center, looking in a mirror. My hat was crooked. My pants were still down on my ass, and I was still talking crazy. And it like a light switch went off, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, this is not how a 35-year-old man carries himself. Like, and it was like this moment. And then I also remember looking and being like, I hate who I see right now. I had gained a bunch of weight. I felt like shit. I looked like shit. I had grown up an athlete, but I had just let myself go through addiction and injury.
Right.
And so I was just bound and determined to lose a little bit of weight. And so I had found out about a little running group that met in downtown Austin, and I got special permission for the treatment center. They had a relationship with them somehow, so they were going to let me go. And so I started going, and I remember I went to my first run, and my ego was still this big. There was about 30 men or women there, and it was 5 a.m. in downtown Austin right next to the homeless shelter. And I walk up, and I'm like, these people ain't got nothing for me. I'm good. I'm an athlete. I've been doing this all my life. I was dead ass last in the run that day. I could barely finish 2 miles. My lungs were on absolute fire, and I was just like,
You're smoking Newports in that time?
yeah, packing Newports a day.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, but I just remember I got done, and I was like, man, like, I felt accomplished. And it was like, it gave me goosebumps even just saying that right now, but like, it had been so long since I had felt that sense of accomplishment, and it felt so good. And I was just like, man, I want to feel that again. And so I made a decision that day. It was like, every time they run, I'm here. And so every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'd be down there, and my 2 miles turned into 3 miles, 3 miles turned into 4 miles. 4 miles, I put the cigarettes down, and then it started taking off from there.
Yeah. Okay, and then so you're still in treatment at this point.
Yep.
Let's get into when you went back to court.
So I was about halfway through my time at that treatment center. I think I was about 3 months in, and it was finally time for my sentencing date. And so, if you've seen the documentary, you'll see there's a scene there. Is that where you're going with this?
What?
Is that where you're leading?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a folder that I had kept, and I'm not an organized person. I still to this day have no idea why I did this, but I kept a folder of all the work I had been doing. So every note I took, every worksheet I did, everything, every test, everything I keep in this folder. Meetings I went to, you name it. And so it's time for my sentencing hearing, and I got to go meet the lawyer. And so I go to meet him, and I give him the folder just to show him, like, I was very appreciative he had gotten me all this time, because I got continuance after continuance after continuance. So I hand him the folder, and he just opened it up, and his jaw dropped. And he's like, Shawn, like, you've really given me something to work with here. Whatever you're doing, I just need you to keep doing it. Let me talk to the judge and see what I could do. And I was just like, it was
Because you're expecting to go away.
I thought I was already gone.
Yeah,
I
you're
thought
done.
I was already gone. I
Yeah.
thought it was a formality. I just wanted to show that the attorney that he didn't do this all in vain, and that I'd actually done what I said I was going to do for once. And so he said, keep doing whatever you're doing, and I was all in at that moment. And so I went back to treatment, and that hope that I got from that and the running completely transformed my entire experience in treatment.
And you've been sober since?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep, 7 years in April. I had 7 years in April 18th.
Yeah.
But I remember going back to that treatment center, and like me, I'm an addict, so I throw all my eggs into one basket. And so at first, I'm getting out of the military, I get diagnosed PTSD, depression, anxiety disorder, panic disorder, blah, blah, blah. And then they just hand me 15 bottles of pills and send me on my way. And I tried it. At the end of the day, it didn't keep me sober, it didn't keep me happy or whatever. And so then I hear about spiritual health. So cool, I'm going to go all in on that. And so I tried mental health, now I'm going to try spiritual health. And what I would find for me is I would get trapped in like a recovery bubble. time and time again, where everything I did, everybody I talked to was just recovery.
And no balance with anything else.
Right. And so what I never knew, or what nobody ever really talked to me about, was understanding that, like, the recovery shit is my foundation. It can't be my life. It can't be my end-all, be-all. Now, if you just got out of treatment, like, absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
dive in head first. But what I didn't know is it's on me to build a life. It's on me to find stuff that's going to fulfill me. It's on me to find something that lights a fire up under my ass. And so here I had found this running stuff. And, you know, before I would trap myself in this recovery bubble till I couldn't take it anymore, and then I'd fuck it all off. And so now I never knew that adding anything in physical could do anything to these other areas of my life. And so I start running, and then pretty quickly all these mental health things that they had labeled me with, they didn't go away, but they got less and less and less to a much more manageable way. And then you want to talk about spiritual health, like, I would go back to the treatment center every morning after I'd ran, and I'd be firing on all cylinders. I had my shower, I had my big book, I had my folder, my bed's made, I'm down in the courtyard, and class doesn't even start for like another hour and a half.
You're like, I'm on fire.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. And then everybody else in the treatment center is just waking up and wiping sleepers out of their eyes and shuffling their little feet down and all that. And here I am on like level 10, like, let's fucking go. You guys ready? And everyone's like, what's wrong with this dude? But then all of a sudden each night I started getting people being like, hey man, what time do you go run? What time do you go run? Now, you're involved with treatment centers, right?
Yep.
All right. So it would be much easier, and you know this, it would be much easier for me to walk into a treatment center or a group of people and be like, hey guys, do you want to go to the gym? I'm going to get some people. Now, if I walk into a group of people, I'm like, hey, do you guys want to go for a run? Like, slim to none anybody's going to take you, right? And so I would get a couple people asking me to come run. And at first, nobody came. And then one person came. And then 3 people came. And then 5 people came. And by the end of it all, I had all 16 people from that treatment center walking in downtown Austin.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I was like, holy shit, man. Like, there's something to all this.
Yeah.
And so it just showed me this avenue and this path. And then I linked up with the amazing Penny Lane, who introduced me into trail running and ultra running. And the running thing was something so simple I never could have realized what something that we've been doing since we were small children could ever have the impact on my life that it did.
Yeah. Yeah, I tried to run for a little bit.
You did. I remember you telling me you were all proud, too.
I tried. I don't know if I ever felt what you described, but I felt I felt good. Yeah, I felt good.
That shit hurts.
I also have
It
bad
actually
knees,
fucking
so.
hurts.
She was like, yeah, man, I've been running. And I feel good. And I'm like, awesome. I was like, do you want to do a Spartan race? We're doing Spartan. She's like, yeah, I'm in. And then I hit her up about a month ago. I'm like, hey, that's Spartans this week. And she's like, man,
Dude,
like, I don't know. Like,
I've fallen so off of every physical activity in my life, and it's like, I'm working up to getting it back. I don't know if I said that to you or not. I've been way off my game with it.
You ain't been coming out to LA enough.
Dude, listen, I fell way off of it. I haven't even been in the gym in like months. So we're working on it. We're getting better.
You're gonna wake up old one day.
Dude, I'm working up to starting again. It's in my plans for the next by January.
New year, new you. January 1st.
January 1st is that is the cutoff. I'm trying to start before then, but
You've heard it here. January 1st.
January 1st. Okay. So then comes along the documentary being made.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
Wild.
So let's talk about that and how that happened and what that looked like.
So I'm involved in the running community in Austin, and as far as recovery goes, like, my story is nothing crazy. You know what I mean? There's not a whole lot we're gonna say that are gonna raise each other's eyebrows. We've heard it all before. But in the running world or in the normal people world, I don't think they hear tales like ours all the time.
Like a junkie?
Yeah.
Running?
Did you just put needles in his body? And so they just, somebody had found out my story, and then Austin Marathon had approached me and asked me to do an interview, and I did it. In the interview, they ended up asking me one of the most important questions I think I've ever been asked. And they said, what would you go back and tell your younger self to change so maybe none of this stuff could have happened? And immediately my mind starts racing. I'm like, oh, man, so many things I could tell my younger self. But I thought about it long and hard, and I came to the conclusion that I'm very sorry for anybody that I hurt along the way, especially like my mom, my sister, anybody like that. Never my intent. But in all honesty, if I could go back, I wouldn't change a thing because I now know I had to go through everything I've been through to be who I am today.
Come on.
And I wouldn't change that for fucking anybody.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of that.
Yeah.
And so I do that interview, and then the next thing I know, a gentleman named Lance Armstrong had reached out and wanted me to come on his podcast. And so here's me, never having been in front of a camera or any of that. I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be awesome. I was so scared.
Yeah.
So scared. It's actually not far from here too. But I did his podcast, and I remember being like, oh man, that was it. Like, that was my moment. Like, I didn't think it was gonna ever get any bigger than that. I was on fucking Lance Armstrong's podcast.
What was he like?
He was cool as hell.
Yeah.
I mean, he was super cool. It was
awesome.
It was funny. I just told the story to the gentleman out there, but after I did the podcast, bro, I'm I'm a year sober. I'm fucking running ultramarathons. I was just on Lance Armstrong's podcast, and I start going around, and people in the running community, they're like, oh, he cheated, right? He cheated, right? I'm like, I don't give a fuck what he did. Like, I'm a heroin addict. I was just on Lance Armstrong. But I don't. Yeah, he was super cool. And, I really enjoyed it. And then next thing I know, a couple of days later, I get a phone call, and it was a director asking me if I would be willing to be part of a large project. And at first, I was getting ready to hang up the phone. I thought it was one of my boys messing with me. Turned out it was legit. And so I was blown away because I didn't understand yet how we could use our stories.
Yeah.
I didn't know that world was. I didn't know it was like that. And especially being outside of the the quote unquote 12-step community
Right.
and stuff like that. I was like, how is this going to mainstream wise? What's that going to do?
Right.
But then we started talking about it, and it just so happened I was training for a 100-mile race. Through this whole process, I got to give credit to a woman named Penny Lane, because this woman saw. I'm about to cry.
Shout out to Penny.
I'm about to
We love
cry just
Penny.
even saying her name. But that woman saw something in me I didn't see in myself at the time, and she knew how to poke me like competitively. And so how long do we got?
Oh, we got a
We
decent.
got 20 minutes.
Oh, that's it? I'll
Yeah.
leave that story out then.
Wait, what time is it?
I feel like we just started.
No,
We're 40 minutes in now.
we can go. He's not
Yeah,
coming
we-
till 4:45.
Oh, cool.
We can go a little longer. We're fine.
So, one of my big problems, I just want to tell you a story. You've heard this before. One of my big problems, I can look back, at my whole journey, and one of my big problems is I wasn't a big God guy.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't believe in God. I just didn't know quite what to believe in.
What God was.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't put him in a box. And so I don't know if it's because I listened to too much Joe Rogan. I start questioning everything. I'm like, oh, man wrote the Bible. Can I really trust that? And so I don't know what it is. And so I just don't know what to believe. And so this story is what let me know without a shadow of a doubt that God is very, very real in my life. And so as I'm in the process of getting kicked out of the military, I get it's the one and only time the military is going to send me to treatment. So they sent me to a 30-day facility here in Austin called Texas Star. And so I go in there, and I was not at all worried about getting sober. I was trying to get out of trouble, and I was trying to salvage my military career. And so I go to Texas Star, and my MO all my life has always been hang around the funny guys. I want to hang around the funny guys. We're going to talk shit. That's how we're going to pass time. I don't care if I'm in the military, if I'm locked up, if I'm on a sports team, at work, you name it. I hang around the funny guys. And so I go up into the treatment center and immediately meet this guy who's 6-7 years younger than me, funny as hell. We're in there talking shit. So I'm like, all right, cool. There's my rehab homie. We're going to rock it out. And so we're in there hanging out, and we're talking during group, and we're talking back to the facilitators, and we're talking to girls and doing everything you shouldn't do. And then I break the cardinal rule that everybody knows you shouldn't do, and then you find your girlfriend in treatment.
Hell
Horrible.
yeah.
Worst decision I've ever made. End up in the most toxic 2-year relationship known to mankind. Equally my fault, but
I thought those relationships are usually super healthy and sustainable.
I mean that's what I thought.
Rehab romance?
That's what I.
Destined
What could go wrong?
What better place to look?
And it's so funny to be on it. You guys got to get it. You see somebody in it doing now, you're like, yo, what are you thinking right now?
Yeah.
And then everybody hangs on to that one couple that made it. They're like, well, they did it.
Yeah.
But so I end up with this girl, get out of the treatment center, start getting in trouble with the law, and now it's time I got to go away and do 2 years. So I go away to do my 2 years, but it's all good because my girl's going to hold me down. She's going to put money on my books while I'm gone. She's going to be fucking writing me everything. All my boys will too. I go away, no letters, no money, no calls, And so I get out, do that time all by myself, get out, and then I make the logical drug addict decision. I got to look up the girl and see what she's up to. Come to find out, Facebook creep her a little bit. She's now with my young homeboy from the treatment center. They're together. So I'm like, all right. So I start texting her, and then she starts texting me back. And then she starts sneaking around behind his back to come see me. And then he finds out about me, and so now we're going back and forth, and we're going to text, and we're going to fight, and it's going to be this and that. And for whatever reason, he never would come meet me. And so one night I was out, and I had had enough all the talk, and I had found out where he lived, and so it was very nice gated community apartments. And so I go over there, and we're gonna handle this now. So I hop the fence, I go up to his door, I'm knocking on the door, trying to get him to come outside. He wouldn't come out, and the girl that I was dating, or the girl that we're speaking about, she was borderline. And so it was always interesting. And so I have to believe she loved the fact that there was two guys getting ready to fight over her. So she was in there egging it on a little bit and stoking the flame, you know. And so at the end of the day, he wouldn't come out. And so she ends up packing up all her stuff, and she's leaving and coming with me. And now I just won the grand prize, I think. I'm like, all right, let's go. So we load up, and I have this grand plan that we're going to move to Temple, Texas. And because there's a VA in Temple, Texas, that's where we're going to get sober. That makes about as much sense to me now as, like, I don't know what I was thinking. So we go to Temple, Texas, pull into town, and I get the first little crackhead motel I can find, get the room. We go in. She starts unpacking her stuff, and all of a sudden out comes a laptop, out comes an iPad, out comes a cell phone, out comes a PlayStation.
Oh, it's all his.
Yeah, and so one thing I never got down with in my entire addiction was stealing. I always just felt like it was bad karma. I just never stole shit. And so I never had any problem with him other than the girl, but now I got the girl back, so in my mind we're all good. So I hit him up, and I'm like, hey, dude, I got your stuff. I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm not going to pawn it. You're more than welcome to come get it. So evidently he thought I was, like, setting him up. And so he sent his mom to come pick up the stuff off me. Why you would send your mother to someone and you're getting set up, I don't know, but that's what he did. Very nice woman. She comes to the pitch black fucking parking lot of this crackhead motel. I give her the stuff. That's that. So now fast forward 3 years later, I end up in Austin, Texas. I'm in a state-funded treatment center. I discover running, and then I meet this woman named Penny Lane, and she runs these things called ultramarathons. And so me and Penny are out running trails, and she's teaching me how to run trails. And so when you're doing trails or ultramarathons, you have to learn how to be able to, like, run down the side of a mountain while leaning forward, like taking big chunks with loose rocks and roots. Like there's a skill to it. So she's teaching me that, and as we're running for hours and hours, I'm telling her my story, and I'm very open with it. And so I tell her I was getting kicked out of the military, and I went to treatment, and ended up with a girl. And the girl has a very unique name. It's not one you hear every day. And so as soon as I said her name, my friend Penny, she's running, and she stops and looks over. And she goes, Shawn, do you know my son? And I was like, well, who's your son? Her son was my young homeboy from the treatment center.
And she's the one that came and met you.
She's the mother that 3 years before had come up and picked that stuff off me. Now, just for a minute, I want you to think about how many astronomical ways that story could have went down. I could have robbed them. I could have got robbed. Somebody could have got hurt. Somebody could have got killed. That's the one honest thing I did in my entire addiction, was go out of my way to give this dude this stuff back. I still to this day don't know why I did it. But what the fuck is the chances that you can take a city like Austin, who's going through a huge boom, Tesla comes, Google, Fate, like all this stuff's happening. We're getting this huge influx of California people coming. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying. Fuckers. No.
Hey, I'm from West Virginia.
I know. I'm from Ohio. I'm a plant too. But we're getting all these people coming, so it's a city with millions of people growing every day. What is the chances, dude, that I go away for 3 years and come back and get plugged in with the one person that would literally introduce me to an avenue that would save my life?
Insane.
If that is not God working, I don't know what is. And so that's what, without a shadow of a doubt, that's why I do it.
Have you spoke to him since?
Yeah. We ended up becoming good friends after that. And yeah.
Wow. Is he sober?
No.
No.
He didn't. But the Penny saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And so what I was saying before, she knew how to poke me competitively. And so the first race she trained me up for was a 10K. And so I was still in treatment at the time, and I get done with my 10K, and I'm like, ooh, look at me. And I remember her looking at me, and she's like, you could do more. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you could run farther. And I got all pissed off, and I was like, fine, I'll run farther. And so my next race, I did it with vengeance. I was pissed off, and so I went out and run a 30K. And I come across, and I'm like, and she was like, you could do more. And then it was a 50K, and then it was a 100K. And so within my first year of sobriety, I'm out running 62 point whatever miles in Bandera, Texas. And it was like this major moment for me because it was like, wait a minute. Like, we've spent so many years in these rooms sitting there identifying, hi, I'm Shawn, I'm alcoholic. I'm Shawn, I'm a heroin addict. I'm Shawn, I'm a junkie. So many times where I feel like that shit was just like beaten into my psyche to where you feel that like that's now your identity.
Yeah.
Well, you go run a race like that in your first year of sobriety, and it was like a major wake-up call. It was like, wait a minute, like, I'm capable of far more than I've been giving myself credit for. And then after that, it was, ultra running is pretty funny. You'll run a race like that, and you'll get done, and you're like, there's absolutely no reason to ever run that far again. And then for whatever reason, you wake up the next morning, and you're like, I could do 100.
Yeah.
Like, it's really weird how it happens. And so I started training for that, and then the film crew was coming, and the rest is history.
Yeah. So 100 Miles to Redemption.
Yep.
It's on all the streaming platforms, I believe, right?
Amazon's the main one.
Yeah. Amazon. Okay. Go watch that, guys. It's great. It's a great documentary.
It's not, and it's not just the major piece of it is not me just running this race, but it's
Your story.
It's the
behind
story,
it.
but it's rebuilding the relationship with my
Right.
family, and in particular my little sister.
Right. Right.
My sister was the last one to kind of come back around to me, which was odd to me at the time because I never really did anything to her. I thought she's much younger than me. I was gone with the military by the time she was like coming of age. I never stole from her, never hit her, never did anything. But, and I talk about it a lot on my podcast or in the posts I do and stuff, is, you know, we as addicts, it's like we get sober and it's like, hey, life is good. We're fucking ready. But what everybody forgets about is like, we have all these resources and programs and 12 steps and all this for us. Yeah. But most families, your treatment center might offer you a family day or, you know, family programming and stuff like that. But most families, I wouldn't say, do any type of extensive work on themselves. So they're sitting at home shell-shocked from all the trauma we just put them through. And so I always thought I knew what I did to my family. But until I saw it on that and I saw what they had to say, that's what really, like, I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This was a lot more severe for them than I thought. And I could be wrong, but I don't feel like most of us addicts know that.
No, I agree.
And so when you see something like that, you know, doing a film like that, I hope it provides hope for, you know, of course addicts, but a lot of families too.
Yeah.
When that director contacted you and he said to work on a big project, he was thinking just about you specifically.
Yeah, he had heard, so the running group that I was a part of, they had done like a little vignette kind of on me before, and I think he had saw that and then saw the Austin Marathon thing and wanted to know more. And
wow.
Yeah, I mean, the whole documentary is based on him, 100%.
I'm going to watch it later.
Yeah, it's good.
What's it called again?
100 Miles to Redemption, right?
Yep.
I'm going to text it to you so I can remember.
The number 100.
Okay, so from there, after the documentary, are you working in treatment at that time?
No.
When did you start working, like, in the recovery? When did you start doing the motivational speaking and the recovery?
It's kind of just
scene?
organically happened. The speaking, I would say, the speaking started kind of after the film.
What was your get well job? This is so random. I'm curious.
Mentoring at-risk youth.
Okay. That's a fucking fire one.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Okay. And then from there, it just, I guess, built.
Yeah. I don't think I started working in kind of in the industry until probably right after quarantine.
Okay.
Is when I started doing that. And I've always kind of worked on the outskirts of the industry, never like fully in.
Right.
Which I like. But what was the question?
When I asked what was your get well job, and then I asked, what did I ask after that?
Started talking about work. That's
I
when
know, sorry,
checked
I
out.
fucked up the flow. Of things. We were talking about, I think I asked you when you started getting into working in treatment and the motivational speaking.
Yeah, the speaking thing's funny. I was just telling somebody the other day because you start off just telling your story.
Right.
Well, then all of a sudden, now there's this movie, and now everybody knows the story. So it's like you got to have the other stuff. And so it's cool how it, like, organically kind of took shape and, like, there's a mess. You know what I mean? Like, you start developing a message, and then you start understanding that there's, like, sub-stories within your story that you can kind of pull out and use to further home the message and stuff like that. So it's cool to was speaking with somebody that's just getting started in speaking, and I was kind of explaining what I do in the process, and I don't even think I realized how far I am in it, because I'm like, yeah, man, like eventually you'll develop your signature talk, and then you'll know how long you're going to do. And let's say they want you to do 20 minutes. You're like, okay, this is if I'm speaking to a church, a school, a Fortune 500 company, all right, I'm going to take this piece, I'm going to take this piece. That's 10 minutes. It's all structured and doing that. And he's just like, what?
Whoa.
What? I'm like, oh man, I have kind of been doing this a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I just had another question at the forefront of my frontal lobe.
Do you still go to meetings?
I do not.
You know what?
I would go. I'm definitely not opposed to them. I don't currently. I don't want to lie to you. Trying to think when the last one. I think I gave somebody their chip about a month and a half ago.
You definitely got to come to the bonfire meeting in LA sometime.
Let's do it.
So good.
Let's do it.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I went to a meeting not long ago. I'm lying. A couple weeks ago, actually. About a month ago.
I feel like you're very immersed in the recovery scene anyways. Everyone, yeah.
Yeah. And see, and that's where, then everyone wants to throw their opinion. But I do feel, working in the industry, I think almost jaded me to recovery in a way where it's like I started looking at the industry as recovery. And then it's like I went to a meeting and it was like a breath of fresh air, and I looked around and I was like, wait a minute, there's nobody from there's just like regular sober people out here. You know what I mean? It changed it for a bit. But yeah, no. I do use my experience to help people every day. I definitely believe I live in the principles, but I would be lying if I said I was at meetings all the time.
Yeah. What does a day in the life look like for you today?
So I get up nice and early.
Nice and early.
So I get up at 2 a.m. I have an emergency alarm set for 2:30. Rachel knows. It never goes off. But I get my day started really early and it ends really early. But up early, that's when I kind of do. The morning time is my favorite time. My wife works from home, so there's not like home alone time. So that's like my quiet time to schedule my social media stuff, reply to emails, look at sports, do whatever I got to do. And then, get my food ready for the day, everything at the gym by about 4:35 or run, whichever I'm doing that day, and knock all that out. And then the rest of the day is your oyster.
That's right. Until 4 p.m., right?
Yeah. But, I miss out on a lot in the evening times. But, no, we're in bed by like 6:30. I'm going to sleep by 7.
Yeah.
That's right. That's a good schedule.
Like a good, healthy adult.
I feel like it's really, because when I think about it, my ass is sitting at home on the couch anyways by that. It's not like I'm out.
That's
I'm
7
never
hours
out
of
doing
sleep.
Stuff.
Yeah, I get plenty of sleep.
It worked. Listen, it worked.
Yeah,
You've been doing it for a long time, right?
Yeah.
When I come back because I spend a lot of time like in London, and when I come back, that's kind of how my schedule is, because it's 8 hours ahead there from California. So when I get back, I'm waking up at like 3 in the morning. 4 in the morning, I actually kind of like it. And then you just kind of get in with everybody else's schedule you work with, and then it fucks it up. But I actually do kind of like it.
Right. On the random weekends, we stay up to watch a like UFC fight or something like that.
Yeah.
But I'm wrecked for like 3
Yeah.
days. Done.
Yeah.
It'll just start the main card will just be starting, and I'm like already nodding out. But I don't know. Like there's.
It's your routine that works for you.
Yeah.
You know.
And I enjoy. I feel like us as drug addicts, like we are willing to take it to a lot of levels other people won't go.
Yeah.
Right. And you like when you talk about competitive, when you want to talk about ultra running and stuff like that, a lot of it is what are you willing to do other people aren't.
Right.
You see the look on people's face when they realize you're up running it. I'm up at 2 a.m. running by 3. They're like, what?
What?
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard it so many times now that you wait, like you're just your schedule, that I'm like, yeah.
You need to get on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Everybody in the world is trying to get on the Joe Rogan podcast, but
You got a good story for it, though.
Yeah.
one day.
Do you want to ask your Hunter question?
Yeah. Are you happy?
Yes.
What's that look
Do you want
like?
me to elaborate on it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Am I? I thought it was just like some rapid fire. Dude, I have my life right now is, even on bad days, is the best it's ever been. I looked at my wife not long ago and I told her every year since I met her has been the best year of my life. You're gonna make me cry.
No, it's okay. We love to cry on this podcast.
Dude, I bought a house a couple years ago. Not anything I ever thought was in the cards for me.
Got a dog.
Beautiful wife, a beautiful little dog. Like, I mean, life is good. I do a podcast. I get to help people. I don't have to stress about paying my bills. Like, this is the happiest I've ever been. I don't know if this is true happiness, but I feel I'm happy.
Yeah.
Love that.
What would you, if you could give advice to someone who was in the same, like, say your rock bottom moment, right? If you could give any advice to someone going through that same kind of thing, what would you say?
Take a look at the people you're surrounding yourself with. For me, it was the absolute most important key to everything. The importance of the people I choose to allow to be around me. Because at the end of the day, it's a choice. Nobody has to be around you. And so I used to fancy myself as this leader and all that stuff, but all I know is every time I hang around people that do dope, I do dope. So I don't know what kind of leader I was. And so I could look back at my life and how the people I was around was a direct reflection of how my life was going. And so now it's a non-negotiable part of my life. When I was getting sober, this is a really long answer to a short question, I'm sorry, but when I was getting sober, I broke everything down to 2 questions. Is this going to help me stay sober, and is this going to help me stay out of prison? If it didn't align with those 2 things, I didn't do it. Like, it had to align with both. And it went for everything. It went for, was I going to wake up and run that day? Was I going to hit the snooze button? Was I going to eat McDonald's that night? Was I going to hang around with this guy? Like, I would have to ask myself those 2 questions. And so inevitably in treatment, there's a morning where you wake up, it's pouring rain and it's freezing or too hot outside, and everything in your brain and your body wants to tell you to hit the snooze button. But I'd have to ask myself, is me hitting the snooze button like I have my entire life, is that going to help me stay sober? Is that going to help me stay out of prison? It hasn't done it so far, so no, I got to go do it. So I just did it, so it became just a complete working part of my mind. And the big piece was the team you choose to surround yourself with.
Right.
And so when I go speak, a lot of one of the themes that I use is the analogy of right now it's football season. We're in December, we're going into playoffs. What's the goal of every team in Super Bowl?
To win.
And so the Super Bowl, though, right?
Super Bowl, yeah.
So if you win the Super Bowl,
Go football.
score a home run.
Yeah.
If you can identify your Super Bowl in your life, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I ask you what's your Super Bowl, you can give me whatever answer you want, but only you know if it's true.
Right.
So if I walk into a treatment center and there's 20 guys sitting right here, and what's your Super Bowl? I'm willing to bet most of them are like, to get sober, to get sober, to get sober. Now, is it really? Do you really want to get sober, or are you just trying to get out of trouble?
Yeah.
Are you just trying to get out of trouble with the law, with your parents? What? So at that time, there was nothing else in my life that was more important than getting sober and staying out of prison. And so if you can identify that and ask yourself those questions, whatever they are for you, then that's going to start pointing you in the right direction. Now, if you want to win the Super Bowl, one of the most important pieces is the team you have around you. Most people know what it's like or have been part of a group, a team, a workforce or something where there's one bad apple spoils the bunch. And so that right there shows you what happens to your locker room every time you let that one bad apple in.
Right.
And so I'm to a point in my life now where, like, this is non-negotiable. Like, I hold myself to a standard. Anybody I choose to call a friend gets held to the same standard, and they all know it. And so it's just being able to have those things in your life and having something in your life that's so important to you that it's non-negotiable. I don't bend, break, or fold for nobody.
Hell yeah, brother!
What's the biggest misconception about recovery?
Biggest misconception about recovery. Good question. That it's boring. You're never gonna have fun again.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, sobriety
I
is so
didn't-
fun. I think people think we're lying when we say that. They're like, you're fucking delusional and you're actually gaslighting us. But I'm
Right.
like,
I tell those story all the time. When I first ended up here in Austin, I discovered a place called Town Lake. Have you seen it yet? Mm-hmm. All right, so Town Lake, there's a big body of water called Lady Bird Lake. It runs through downtown Austin.
Yeah.
And there's a beautiful 10-mile trail that goes around it called.
Wait, I think is that
Town
where you
Lake.
took us that one time? Is there like yeah?
I took you to Mount Bonnell.
Oh, okay, never mind.
All right. So you're basically, it's just a path right around the water.
Yeah.
But the coolest thing about it, so I'm from Youngstown, Ohio. It's nothing but shit. There's nothing there. And so when I show up there's no fitness culture, running culture, anything like that there. So I show up here and I discover Town Lake. And you can go out there right now, or you can go out there at 10 o'clock tonight, and I guarantee you're going to see people from all different walks of life.
Always.
Big people, little people, young people, old people, pregnant moms pushing 2 baby strollers while walking their dog, people out there on mountain bikes. Nobody cares. Everybody's smiling. Nobody cares how fast you are. They're just out there doing something physically active and having fun with it. it's cool. So I would go there, and it just became this like feel good place for me. And so me and my buddy, we were running around Town Lake the one day, and we had come up through a place called Zucker Park. Now Zucker Park is a very social part of Town Lake, and so you'll people out there playing frisbee and people out there picnics, volleyball, all that kind of stuff. And so that particular day, we come up running through Zucker Park, and I look off to my right, and I see like 100 to 150 grown-ass adults running around with broomsticks in between their legs and hula hoops everywhere. And I'm like, what the fuck are those people doing right there? Like, my jaw hit the floor. And my buddy, he starts dying laughing at me. He's like, oh, bro, they're playing that game from Harry Potter. And I was like, I've never seen Harry Potter.
Quidditch?
Yeah, and he's like, oh, it's called Quidditch. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but that is wild to me. Like, these are grown-ass adults doing this shit.
Did you go play it?
No.
Oh.
But, no.
Oh.
But so I'm laughing at the people, and he's laughing at me, and then we keep running, and it started to sink in where I was just like, damn, man, like, if you can find that to do in this city, you can find anything to do.
Yeah.
But what those people were doing was something I didn't quite know how to do yet, and was understand that there's such thing as good, healthy, sober fun.
Right.
And so then I start venturing out and start going to concerts and start doing. I'm like, oh wait, there's sober people do all this stuff. Like I can do all these things, and I can actually remember it, and I don't fuck my shoes up because I'm drunk, stumbling everywhere. Like, you know what I mean? There's 1,000 different things, and so I think once you, and then if you start getting involved with fitness or running or like these type of things, like it's fucking fun to go with a bunch of friends and go run a race.
Yeah.
That shit's fun to me, and so like that's real fun. It's not fun sitting around with all your peeps at 3 a.m. just snorting rails, staring at each other, talking about starting businesses.
Well, you even say all your peeps, but we were talking. When I get high, I'm by myself. I'm being weird. Like when I think about myself in active addiction, there was nothing fun about me sitting alone in my car, nodding out, smoking crack, being a fucking weirdo, peeking through the blinds. Like you know.
But it wasn't fun peeking through the blind.
No, I was fucking scared. I used to hear helicopters every time I smoked
few hours.
Crack. Yeah, for a little here and there. Then it gets fucking weird, right?
It's scary.
I would think it was fun because I knew it was all bullshit. Like
I wouldn't
really think they were out there because I'm trying to think if it was meth or crack. There was one where I would think they were out there, and there was one where I didn't think they were out there.
I don't know. I was a crackhead, and I very much thought I had to. It wasn't like, oh, they're there, but I was like, oh, they might be. You know, like I was like, there might be some. I smoked much crack, but I was never the person that was like down on the carpet and doing all that stuff. And so I would see those people do that stuff, and it was just always humorous to me. But then later I would catch myself peeking out the window, so I knew what I was doing. I was doing exactly what they were doing, so I would like giggle about it. But I remember in Youngstown when I first started smoking crack, there was the dope dealer. Her name was Nettie, and you go to her trap house, and she has homeless dudes living in the front. But then if you ever make it you never make it past, most people don't make it past the homeless guys at the front door, right? But once you get in with Nettie, you can knock on her window and she'll like barge through them and let you in. And then you go into her bedroom, and it's like this lavish fucking bedroom, but it's like bare bones crack house. Yeah.
Otherwise.
Yeah.
And so I was in there one time, and I was getting ready to leave, and she goes, honey, don't you worry about them. Go ahead and grab you a handful of that kitty litter and just throw it on the ground when you watch out and watch what happens. And I was like, all right. I wasn't even thinking. So I go out, and you see these dudes just like going, stuffing pieces of kitty litter in their crack pipe and all that. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I was definitely a carpet surfer for sure.
You were?
Yeah, 100%. I can't tell you how many. I smoked a lot of crack, more crack in my car than anything. And the pebbles and shit that I would pick. Yeah.
You wouldn't get scared to drive afterward?
Oh, I would, but I would park. I would usually sit in my driveway, but I lived with my dad at the time. I couldn't really be smoking crack too. It was a little. I was like, I'd rather be at least a little bit removed.
Yeah.
But I used to also carpet surf in my car, and the amount of pebbles, those like little pebbles that will be up in the sides of like the fucking shit I'm finding on the ground, just fucking smoking it, deodorant, who knows, Yeah.
So you'll like this. We were walking. I don't mean to sit here and war story, but we were snorting rails in my buddy's basement the one time because we have basements up north. Oh, you know.
I love a basement. Yeah.
And so you would get this too. You're from New York. I forgot.
Yeah.
So we go walking upstairs. It's winter out, and my buddy had a little tick, where sometimes he would like go like that, and so he would be breaking up coke and he'd have his little tick, and then a bunch of coke would go
Oh,
everywhere.
no.
Well, he would never take the time to get it.
Yeah.
And so my other buddy would. And so we went to go, my one buddy's upstairs, we went to go upstairs, and we go to the stairs, and there's like this white mound on the this perfect white mound. And my buddy's like, I found it, it's mine. Like that, thinking that the other dude just dropped it.
Yeah.
Goes, breaks it up, snorts it.
It's like Ajax or some shit.
Salt from the fucking roads.
Oh, no.
He's fucking snorted salt off the roads.
Oh, fuck him
Ow.
up too, physically.
Ugh.
Wow.
Oh, damn. All right. Do you have it? Do you want to do a plug for the pod?
The pod?
Yeah.
I'd love to.
Yeah. Plug.
So I
you
do
love plugs.
I also do a show. It's called I Am Redemption. It's not a recovery podcast per se. What it is an adversity podcast. So it's people from all different walks of life. Many drug addicts have been on. You've been on multiple times. Would love to have you on if you're ever
for sure.
If you're ever
Love
in
to.
town. But we've had UFC fighters. We've had actors, musicians, Olympic athletes. But the overarching goal is just I want people to understand something that I realized when I first started getting out and speaking and doing my thing with the film was that not only does addiction and mental health touch basically every person we know, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, we're all recovering from something.
Right.
We've all been through shit. And so I never knew a world existed where I could take all this shit, all this pain, and never use it to help people. And I don't feel like most people know that. And so it's hard to find a person that hasn't been through adversity in your life. And so if you've been through adversity in your life and you made it on the other side and you actually want to give that pain purpose, use that experience to help people. And so that's my goal, is to get people to understand that. It doesn't matter if you're a drug addict, alcoholic. There's people that have been through things that I've never been through. But they have a unique ability to be able to go back and help people. And so I didn't know that the things at one time I was most ashamed of in this world would be now the things I'm most proud of, to stand in front of hundreds of people or to stand on my podcast and talk about. And so just getting other people to understand and realize that they have that same ability too is the goal. So tune in, YouTube, or anywhere you can find podcasts. I Am Redemption.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
a
you, brother.
wrap.